The story of the Citadel starts off like most stories from classic boomer shooters do, with one of your allies simply providing you with your weapons and a basic objective for you to follow, which more or less serves to just justify the action. Like, why are these things occurring? It's not really meant to serve as a real story, and it's more an excuse to have a setting for the player to have fun in, which, while there's nothing wrong with that, what I like about the Citadel is the fact that while the story starts off more simplistic, as you go along, and especially if you pay attention to the few but notable and genuinely meaningful interactions you can have with other characters, as well as due to the simple environmental storytelling, it becomes clear that there is a much more interesting, detailed, and obviously sinister and complex plot going on behind the scenes. As the task you're initially given is simple: your sisters have been corrupted, or essentially brainwashed, by the influence of an evil entity called the Sleeping Gods. Your objective is to put down the Sleeping God's 7 guardian angels and then ultimately destroy him, freeing your sisters from its influence. However, while this is quite a simple description, it brings a lot of questions into mind already. What do they mean, your sisters? Is that a more literal sense, or is that more symbolic? Where did these guardian angels come from? And who is this sleeping god? And this is slowly revealed throughout the course of the game. You see, the world of the Citadel is pretty dystopic. You see military roaming everywhere, suggesting the presence of a military state. You see that things are pretty destroyed and polluted, and just there's this oppressive aura as if the world is already in a post-apocalypse, even before whatever the sleeping god did. And so you get the sense that the church is already not this more benevolent entity that they try to appear as, like the good guys fighting against the evil entity that is the sleeping gods. They're clearly a very militaristic and very oppressive organization, which is further reinforced by the fact that you, over the course of the game, discover that the 7 guardian angels aren't the envoys of the sleeping god, or at least they weren't. In fact, they are entities created by the church in order to serve them as living weapons. And while some of them consented to this, a lot of them were also the result of inhumane experiments in order to bolster the church's forces at the cost of giving these poor girls, a lot of which were some of the most dedicated members of said church, a fate worse than death. And just by analyzing these factors, the player can get this clear sense that the church aren't, again, the good guys that they claim to be. They aren't the heroes of this story. But this is just further reinforced by the secondary characters of the game, your allies, Lysander and Tico. Both of them are male characters, the only male characters in the game actually, as it seems that this militaristic and very oppressive religious regime is governed and staffed mostly by women, in a sort of alternate scenario to the Empire of Man, or I guess the Empire of Woman now from Warhammer, as if all of them were composed exclusively of the Sisters of Battle. But sorry, a bit of a detour. But the point is that these allies provide you with a base of operations, as well as with a shop in the form of Tico. And one thing I like about how they implement this more merchant sort of character in Tico in this game is that the concept of a merchant in such a desperate situation, especially one involving like an entity, a character that more or less serves as the hero, the only person that can resolve this situation, that this desperate situation that humanity finds itself in, right? The idea of having a merchant under these circumstances seems nonsensical at best in most games where it's implemented, and plain old evil at worst, making these characters seem very unlikable. And they avoid doing this with Tico by the fact that they aren't really a merchant and more of an scavenger actually, as they explain that all the items they are quote unquote selling you are actually items that they found broken throughout the world you explore, and that all the money you give them, or should I say more accurately, all the resources you give them are simply used to repair these broken materials that they then gift to you for free. And so again, sort of a detour, but one I actually wanted to do, one I actually think is important because it's a cool element of the story and a cool way to implement this sort of character in a more sensible way, in my opinion, for the setting. But anyway, another thing that Lysander does is that he explains to you that the sleeping god, being this all-powerful entity capable of brainwashing thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, as well as some of the most powerful living weapons of the church, will obviously not be able to be killed with the use of simple, ordinary weapons. And so he is also developing a weapon called the Relic in order to be able to actually damage the sleeping gods. However, these two allies don't fulfill this simple, helpful NPC role forever, as Lysander is revealed to be one of the 7 guardian angels, as you can probably tell by his appearance. And so, while he does not start off this way, he is eventually corrupted, and you have to put him down alongside the other ones. And this brings Tico into a deep depression that makes him begin questioning the church and its teachings. Because the only reason Tico is alive right now is because of Lysander. Lysander, during the initial attack by the forces of the sleeping gods, saved Tico directly from being slaughtered and brought him to this safe base. It's why he's so thankful, it's why he admires Lysander so much, and what compels him to put so much effort into helping in the efforts of the protagonist's mission in the first place. And so when Lysander dies, Tico begins to question all of what was taught to him. Like, if the martyr's mission is so important, if it's so good, then why does it go against all that was taught by the church? Because what is taught by the church is that despite their nature as simple, like inhumane experiments, the church advertises the angels, the actual guardian angels that they created, as genuine agents of God here on earth, as genuine divine beings sent from the Lord himself in order to help humanity. So why is the martyr killing them? Why are they turning against humanity? Like, if they are so divine and have been chosen as these so devoted and important members of the church that, by church's propaganda, supposedly ascended into these perfect servants of the Lord, then why are we putting them down? Why do we have to kill such kind, dedicated, and supposedly such straight up holy people, etc.? And so, what he uncovers and what the player can begin to notice, again, by simply looking at the surroundings and getting a sense of the environmental storytelling, is that the church never found God. And much like the angels, they foolishly thought that instead of simply believing and having faith, that they could create their own divine constructs. At first limiting themselves to the guardian angels, the simple agents of God, and then later even trying the ultimate blasphemy of bringing about their own gods. And so that's, as you can probably imagine, how the sleeping god came to be, as a result, a further extension of these inhumane experiments by the church. Even worse, however, Tycho uncovers the fact that the sleeping god, despite all the evil that he's caused, is innocent. As you can probably see on screen right now, the supposed evil god that has brainwashed all your sisters and has caused the church to summon you in order to have to put them down and destroy everything in order to save humanity. The being that all of that not only was created by the church, but he is not even doing all of this out of malice, out of a genuine evil as the church is. In fact, the sleeping god, this evil entity that you hear about throughout the whole game, is, again, as you can see, a simple fetus, a baby, an innocent creature that is causing all of this through no fault of its own. It's simply doing this because it's in its nature. It's what it was created to do, and it simply cannot control its powers. It simply started manifesting them sooner than was intended, and in a obviously, given its state, not controlled way, which is why this is all happening in the first place. So, is it really fair to kill it? Not only was it fair, was it just to kill the angels, these poor girls that had already suffered enough due to either their devotion or the church's simple mistreatment. But is it truly fair to kill the sleeping god, this baby, this innocent creature that has not done anything bad by its own fault, instead of punishing the ones truly responsible? The game doesn't answer you that. It actually gives you a choice, which leads to the game's two endings. In one of them, you can either sacrifice yourself in order to give the sleeping god a chance to live, a chance to really enjoy its life as it was supposed to, a chance to spare this innocent creature, or you can simply fulfill your duty and kill it. And a brilliant thing about those endings is that, given the fact that, as you can again probably see on screen, you die on both of them, you never know the ramifications of those choices. Did the church just go on to create other angels and try to create another sleeping god, as they did in the past, or did they learn their lesson? Were they successful in creating the sleeping god with the resources they clearly had? Or did they start relying on other, maybe even worse methods of controlling the population, or in even further gods like doubting blasphemy? Or if you did sacrifice yourself, Was that truly the best thing? Did the sleeping gods grow up and prove itself to be an actual evil entity that should have been killed? And even if it didn't, did it actually care for humanity? Did it actually realize all the bad things it's caused and try to fix them? Or did it simply not care as a proper eldritch god would? Was it truly the best idea to leave this thing alive? All moral complications notwithstanding. It's just a very open ended, well, end that I find to be a brilliant conclusion to such a dark, hopeless, and manipulative, but at the same time very interesting and melancholic story as the one of the Citadel. But obviously, these are only my own conclusions. I didn't read any wiki or anything like that. These are essentially the conclusions I arrived at after simply playing the game and trying to pay attention to as much as I possibly could, but it's entirely possible that I'm completely wrong, as I'll review a bit of the behind the scenes for the channel. This is actually my second recording, as after reviewing the footage I realized that my first narration and understanding of events was just completely off. And it's entirely possible that I missed a couple of things and got things wrong on this as well. Or it's also entirely possible for you to simply have a different interpretation. And no matter what, I'd be interested to hear what you thought in the comments below. I really would like to have a discussion with other people about this game. If, of course, you guys are interested. And that will be it for today. If you like this video, please do all the normal YouTube stuff. You know, like, comment, subscribe, etc. And I genuinely do hope to see you next time. If you really liked it, I'd also really appreciate if you could support me financially, either through a one-time paid comment donation or by joining my membership, where for $1 a month, you get to participate in exclusive polls in order to decide which videos I'll make next. Like, which of my plans should I focus on? Which of the content I have in mind do you want to see first? You know, that kind of thing. As well as get your name put in this fancy little screen right here. You know, just as a small gesture of appreciation, exactly for your monthly support. But of course, no matter how much you choose to give me, as well as if you choose to give me anything at all, do know that I really appreciate any cent you're willing to throw my way, as well as just the fact that you're watching this video up to this point at all. But with all that stuff out of the way, I think it's finally time to, as always, bid you guys farewell. Obscure Anime out.